Yeah, good evening. We are starting off with a set of topics you see on the screen. They're all top notch topics for everyone, particularly for those seeking to be leaders. Whichever field, you need to know this. The whole country is talking about it, and some of the issues the whole world is talking about. So, it's coincidental that they are important for the exam. Very, very important for the exam. Otherwise, they are a part of our general awareness and responsible citizenship. We need to know what's going on. We need to have views on that. We need to act on that so that we are truly independent. So, happy Independence Day. Let's get started. You know, you get the background for this local currency trade. You have seen the havoc last year. American inflation, European inflation, British inflation, their rates go up. Money travels in search of those currencies, particularly the dollar, and all our currencies go down. We spend lots and lots of dollars, which we had acquired to deal with such a situation, to defend our rupee. And all this anarchy and damage we should be able to prevent, not overnight, but incremental steps we need to take. One of them being local currency trade. You remember special Vostro account of RBI last year July? RBI said any of these foreign banks can open a Vostro account with an Indian bank after taking RBI permission. And when we import, we can pay in rupee. When they export, when we import, we can get paid in rupee. When they export, we'll pay them in rupee. It's all rupee. That's one shade of de-dollarization, declining a role of dollar in the global economy. Another shade is the local currency. That is going to be far, far more beneficial because when you export to dirham country, that is UAE, they will pay you in their local currency, the dirham, Emirati dirham. And when we import, we pay them in rupee. You see, when you export, you earn a lot of Emirati dirham. You got that in your country. And when you import, you could pay them in their currency, also our currency. It's all very flexible. You could call it local currency. You want to pay them in rupee, perfectly fine. Pay them in dirham also. Some flexibility is there. So we already know, all of you have become masters in the game. You already know why this local currency, when it is possible, should be preferred. You trade more. There is no nuisance of acquisition of dollar. There is no panic about the local currencies dropping against the dollar. There is no exchange rate risk. You trade more. Trade could expand to investment. There will be far closer and far larger economic relationship. This is classical ease of doing business, simplification of foreign trade, such a relief. And why not in the process, if India can have its own rupee, go global, international, people stock up your rupee. It could become a reserve currency in course of time. Why not? So with all this in mind, after visiting France, when our Prime Minister was coming back to India, he sort of went to UAE and our RBI at their central bank struck an MOU in which it was, decided that we will trade in local currency. Dubai, we had lots of some gold. That was the first transaction in local currency, gold. And you have seen it in the papers yesterday that crude, when we traded in crude, there was payment in local currency. And it's picking up after all. Everyone loves dollars. So it's picking up because it will take some time for the habit to break and see the benefit of the new need. That is a UAE, India. There are challenges after all. Everyone, as I said, loves the dollar, number one. They took loan in dollars, so they have to repay the dollar, and therefore they need the dollar for what they export, number two. And also, when they have the dollar, they can do business with the whole world. But here, you have to confine yourself to a bipartisan trade relation. These are some of the challenges. Also, about the rupee, also there are some concerns. You are depreciating, number one, and then the legality of the currency is at times questioned within the country itself, number two. And number three is if you have so much of rupee with you when you export to India, like the problem is with Russia, what will you do with the extra rupee? A lot of rupee is there in your, cupboard. You earned it by exporting, and you used a little bit of that to import. But rest of the rupee, what do? We allowed them to invest that rupee in our T-bills and, the bonds, government bonds, corporate bonds also. But even for that, they have better options in their mind. And therefore, they may not be all too readily inclined to invest so much into our securities. So these are teething problems. We'll sort them out in course of time. They would love to trade in local currencies because nobody likes the kind of pathological panic based dependency on dollar. We are good friends with America. Lots and lots of things are happening with America. But no. Polycentric global currency system, that is the best. Have dollar, have euro, have pound, have yen, have rupee, have renminbi, yuan, whatever. So, polycentric currency global system. In the process, you have lots and lots of alternatives. One of them is local currency trade. Very, very good for India because a lot of our panic, when the rupee drops, you run dry of your foreign dollar holdings, number one. Inflation, number two. Subsidization, number three. And balance of payments crisis, number four. Flight of capital, number whatever, five, six, whatever. All these problems are eminently sort of preventable because we are a $3.75 trillion economy. Bat an eyelid and you are the third largest economy in the world. You've overtaken Germany and Japan. You are right next to America and China. So for a country of this stature to still run after dollar is unbecoming of us. Therefore, we have to get rid of our dependence on dollar because with our eyes, we have seen the whole of last fiscal year how we had to run helter-skelter to defend the rupee against the dollar. And whose headache? Their headache, their inflation, their monetary profligacy. And who are the victims? The entire global south, not just the global south. Even euro got victimized. Pound, though they thought they'll write pound off as a global reserve currency. So but then America is so super strong that nobody can touch the dollar. Incrementally over decades, the influence could reduce a little bit. However, the dollar, we need to get out of dollar as much as possible, It's so heartening to note that advanced countries have opted to open a special Vostro account with us. There's no revolution, there is only evolution. Revolutions don't last. Evolution is here to stay, permanent. So, rupee is evolving towards a global role. And in that connection, this deal is encouraging. That is about the India UAE local currency trade. $35 billion of annual trade just in petrol. That is, hydrocarbons. And of course, you got gems and jewelry, gold, all that. You got totally, roughly, I can't recall the figure, roughly about $70-80 billion, which is enormous. So that's the India UAE local currency trade. Let's get into two things about the digital personal data protection. Two things. And they are very, very important. There is some controversy, polarization. There are pros and cons and advocates and opponents and all that. Let's see what's going on about. Your data is there. There is no stopping the personal data from getting into all these networks. Digital India, you've got Aadhaar, you've got UPI, you've got Digi Yatra is coming up, and Digi Locker is there, you've got Arogya Setu, what not. All the digital data is up for grabs before the law. Anybody, government could use it, process it. We are the data principals. Government is a data fiduciary. We generate the data. Government has hold on the data. Now, how sure are you you're okay when the government uses all your digital personal data? Definitely not comfortable. Government is our mother and father, but still, we have to have our privacy. Earlier, the law said that all your digital data was usable, processable by the government. All those things, public interest and all. But now this law says that you have your data, we won't touch it. Unless, the data that you have, for example, every time you go to a website looking for information, there'll be cookies, accept this, that. Cookies means what? They track where you go. They could be used to profile you. Data is sold, data is misused. But I don't know anything about cookies. You don't know anything about cookies. We don't know what happens if you decline. So we accept, and whatever happens, all that. Now there is some order, some architecture, some rules and regulations, and there are partitions. This is your data, we will not touch it. This is the, certain data we won't touch it. Certain data may be useful for the government to, protect the sovereignty, unity, integrity, security, and all that. So they will use the data for specified legitimate uses. Specified legitimate uses. So earlier, it was automatic, deemed consent. Your consent was default. If you said, no, don't use my data, then of course they won't use your data. But how many of us exercise that option? We don't even know how that option has to be exercised. Now, those days, pre this Act of 23, all data was deemed to be usable. The consent was deemed to be there. Presumption of the consent, default. But now, the deemed consent has been replaced with specified legitimate uses. Your data is there, we don't deem it to be useful for all purposes. We will process the data only if you have interest, like enforcement of a contract. I have taken loan from a bank, 100 rupees, I have not been giving, and there is seemingly some stress in that account, and the bank could track my data on Twitter, this, that, and they will, get some idea about where I'm going financially. That's allowed, enforcement of a contract. And of course, security, this, that, the government purposes. So only those specified legitimate purposes allow the processing of the personal data. So what's the picture here? The picture is, it's okay, it all stems from Puttaswamy 2017. But Puttaswamy said personal privacy is not absolute right. That could be conditioned by the government or any other agency having to use some data about the person even while violating the privacy, because there has to be a marriage between privacy and public interest, whatever you like to call. So this deemed consent being replaced by specified legitimate uses is praised by some. What's the basis for praising it? The basis is, now you know that you are autonomous. Now you know your privacy is respected. Now you know there are clearly spelled out purposes for which the data could be processed. So there is some order, rule, regulation for harmonization between the privacy and the public interest. But others are saying, critics are there, there is criticism, should not be a religion, but criticism is pretty crucial for pushing our fortunes forward. What are we without criticism? So that is why UPSC asks you critically examine the concept of specific legitimate uses replacing deemed consent in the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. They're going to ask you critically. They're not going to ask you, praise it out and out. No. So, what are the critics worried about? They are worried about the elasticity of the term public order. Means sovereignty, security, unity. They're all very vital today, the Independence Day. But the people who manage these laws, implement the laws, they could have, unconditional meaning for these words, and that could be an intrusion into the private field of a person. So, management of that is very crucial, balancing. And where do you go if your privacy goes wrong? In the hands of those who are processing your data, there is this telecom disputes, TDSAT, you could go there. But then routine cases go there. But if the challenge is on the basis of right to privacy, which is the fundamental right of yours flowing out of Article 21, personal liberty, then you have to start the deal with the High Court. And that's going to take long time. And so effectively, judicial remedies only there on book, and so the speedy nature of redressal of grievances related to the right to privacy, etc., is not there. So yes, there is order. I'll show you the graphic I've made about it. You will see it later after the lecture closes. You'll have ample stuff. Please read that very carefully, because we need to walk very delicately, because after all, the government has made the law. This law is a fact of life now, and we need to see also with some patience. We need to see the positive side of it. We need to see it. I have made a draft based upon positively looking at it. Criticism for the sake of criticism, I generally am put off, like so many others, by it. So that is okay. That is one, which is deemed consent replaced by specified legitimate use. Legitimate, your data profiling, all that could be legitimate, because not everyone is a law-abiding citizen. There could be legitimate doubt about what some people are doing. So fine, that's okay. But that creep, the function creep should not be there. You should not creep up and up and up so much that all data of all people is processed in the name of all that. So that's one. The other one is a bit tricky. This one is tricky. See, clause 44, subclause 3 of the Act of 23. It amends the RTI Act, which is section 8, subsection 1 and subsection J of that. It runs like this. Section 8, subsection 1, subsection J of RTI. RTI is a highly balanced act. Right to Information Act 2005. It protects the citizen's right to ask for information from the government, because that's very vital, because his life depends on government in a state which is welfare state. There's so many schemes taking care of him in every way, 360 degrees. He needs information. So he has a right to information. Based on that, welfare state can function well. Services are of high quality. Everyone who is entitled, he gets his entitlement. Food, health, education, transport, direct benefit transfer, all that. So you can ask for information and that information could be denied, personal information it is, if that personal information did not have any interest with the public life and public interest. So there is a government officer, there is some data about him that somebody asked and that data has nothing to do with public life and public interest and so on, and that data can be legitimately denied. So personal information could be held back by the government if it has no nexus with public interest. Otherwise, the personal data, if it is connected to the public life interest, it has to be revealed. We are not talking of not giving information about security agencies, raw, etc. We are not talking about that. We are talking about this part: personal interest and public interest. Personal information, public interest. Now, this law says personal information can be denied full stop. No reasons. Even if it is intimately connected with public life, it can still be denied. Now I'll tell you, you see, I am interested in welfare, development and, human well-being. So now I'll give you an example. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many examples? Remember, these are the days of blockchain. All of you in the government, you will implement policies for transparency, accountability, where data is out there for everyone to see, use and all that. And that helps the percolation of benefits. Go to the PDS. Public distribution system. We are all living in a village. Not everyone is living in Delhi, for God's sake. Villages people are living. Helpless people are living in villages, depending on the government, every step of the life, every day. What do they want? Okay, I don't have a PDS card, fair price shop card, I don't have. My neighbor says he has. I want to know if he really has. I want the information about the beneficiaries of the PDS system in my village. Government has held it back. How will I ever know? How can I ask the government? Where is transparency? Where is accountability? And my food security is connected to that. Is there anything beyond food? You please tell me. Food is not everything, but food is not nothing either. So food. So that is point number 1. Point number 2. We are all farmers. Kisan Samman. We have to get money. A little bit of money. 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. 3 installments, 6,000 annually. My neighbor is a farmer. I'm a farmer. This side neighbor is a farmer. Who is getting, who is not getting, I would have to know for me to get some justice. I'm not getting. Why on this earth am I not getting? For that I need information. Government can hold the information back. Where do I go? So you see, that is it. Similarly, you can multiply the examples. Already in your minds, you must have already multiplied about health and education. Government is taking care of the domestic helps. Transferring money. There's a e-Shram portal, 30-40 crores are registered already there. And the government is looking forward to giving them benefits, raining benefits on them. When you're doing so much for the people, let the people ask you questions about all these programs so that your reach can be even better. Not just in quantity, but quality. So yes, withholding information, on what basis are you withholding information? Mr. X, Mrs. Y, Miss Z, Mr. A. That's all person. They are persons. The information of they are receiving or not is personal information. In the name of protecting their privacy, how can you hold back information which has a large social purpose? So this is our contention. The government says we are doing it. Like what does the government say? Government says, we have to hold back the information. That is the reason they have given. It's our right. What makes you believe that we'll hold back the information about Ujjwala, Saubhagya, uh, Pradhan Mantri, this? What makes you feel so? That is the government's point of view. But critics say, you have a wholesale, one line, government can withhold personal information, full stop. No conditions about it. So critics say that it could potentially go down, slippery slope. You made the law, you will use it, and in the process, with the best of intentions, you could go wrong. That is what they are saying. So these are the two things about the law that struck me as debatable and, good for a debate in writing also. One is about deemed consent and another is about the RTI. There are other aspects, but I chosen these two, for our discussion. I've chosen these two. Now let's see organic, regenerative, and carbon farming. Before organic, of course, conventional. Conventional also. Conventional, organic, regenerative. They're all very, very important. And carbon, because the current budget, put a lot of stress on natural farming. Natural. Oh, these are all natural. These are natural, partly even less of nature here. Let's see. So conventional farming is, we use fertilizers, hybrid seeds, genetically modified mustard, cotton, tomato, brinjal, all that. We use that. That's conventional agriculture where the entire focus is on the outcome. We need to produce more by hook or by crook. So we have, created the green revolution, resource intensive. Water also, big dams and stuff. That's okay, everyone gets water and all that. This hybrid seeds, not the GMOs. GMOs are today. Green revolution today, GMOs. Those days, hybrid seeds. You didn't tinker with the cheats, but you mix two and produced a hybrid. And then, of course, fertilizer, urea, phosphate, potash, ammonia, you said. All this we used. And magic, the productivity jumped up, and we are food secure. We are producing enough for our consumption. If the distribution is right and other logistics are right, everyone has food to have. So that's conventional, but that's run out of steam. Actually, it's getting counterproductive. Productive, counterproductive. Land is finished, water is finished, food is finished. Pesticides everywhere, cancer everywhere. Not everywhere, in some pockets. So, that's run its course and now it's hitting backlash. And people are realizing it. So, people are conscious. When you go to the store, what do you ask? Potato? Organic. This organic, that organic. Organic means no synthetic chemicals. You have the compost and all that, you have bio waste, etc., converted into this sort of natural fertilizer for soil fertility, etc., etc. Organic. That is chemical free food, crops. And today I've read somewhere somebody is saying it's so costly it will not take off. But that's okay. Costly things also take off. It may not go, en masse, but certainly there's market for it. We are a huge country, 300, 400 million middle class. I'm sure people care for their children and they would love to give them organic stuff. And so this is organic. But that's not enough. Organic is not enough. You have to be regenerative. What is regenerative? Soil has to have carbon, other, natural minerals and nutrients like all these nitrogen, carbon, phosphate, and all that. We need to have. So you have to regenerate that. How will you regenerate? First, you make sure your soil doesn't get washed off. You have agroforestry. All the water is coming, the streams are coming. Have trees there, agroforestry. They will ensure water doesn't go anywhere, soil doesn't go anywhere, top fertile soil doesn't get washed off, and that's very important for your plant health and productivity. Then you know what you do? Controlled grazing so that animals come and they eat certain weeds and certain other plants, certain other, plants. And they also, give their own natural chemicals there, their excreta, their urine, etc. That adds to the nutrient content of the soil. So integrate your agriculture with animal farming. That's point number 2. Don't till your soil. We thought heavy tractorization days that zero tillage or utterly minimum tillage. Don't lose the, carbon and nitrogen and other precious, nutrients there. Don't lose it. So zero tillage or minimum tillage. That is another very important principle here. Point number 3. Regenerative. So what are you regenerating? You are regenerating the topsoil fertility, the carbon stock, the nitrogen stock, all that you are regenerating. You are not just cultivating for food, you are cultivating to ensure that the food production is sustainable, greenhouse gases are minimized. After all, when you don't use the external chemicals for it, are you not cutting down the emissions of greenhouse gases? You are. Your soil, the carbon there, you are sequestering, absorbing the carbon from the atmosphere back into the soil. And that's having tremendous effect on the quality of the soil, the plant, the productivity, sustainability, so on and so forth. So this is regenerative, not just the outcome, but also the process. Not just the generation of production of food, but also, ensuring its sustainability. There are no chemicals in food. That, of course, comes with organic also. Here, the name of the game is regeneration. Regenerative agriculture. Is it overlapping with organic? Surely to an extent, yeah. You're not using outside chemicals. But in the organic agriculture, you are not focusing on restoration of the soil fertility, carbon stock, etc., nutrients, etc. That's a big difference here. That is regenerating. In the process, what are you gaining? Soil, water, no erosion, sequestration of the atmospheric carbon. What are you not gaining? I'll show you the graphic. And is carbon farming the same as regenerative? Please understand. These 3 are overlapping. They overlap. Organic is there in regenerative. Honestly, I don't understand the difference between regenerative and carbon. I've looked up plenty of sources from the people who practiced it and from the people who theorized about it. And I couldn't find any difference except that if the question indeed is asked, then your first, second, third, whatever line, carbon farming is similar, very similar to regenerative agriculture, with the difference that the focus of carbon farming is to sequester the carbon. In regenerative, you don't talk of sequestration of carbon as a first line. Here that is. And in carbon farming, because of the sequestration, number 1, because of the amount of carbon that you help the soils acquire, number 2, you can sell that as carbon credits. Quantify it, monetize it, generate income for yourself, plow it back into your agriculture, keep expanding in a healthy, sustainable way. So carbon farming has to be, again, carbon farming also, agroforestry, plant trees, controlled grazing for integration of the animal farming with agriculture. You have to talk of that also. But in carbon farming, from what I have discovered as the essential point is absorption of CO2 from the atmosphere and converting that into the soil carbon for, all the good things. That's point number one. And carbon credits can be sold. Remember, maybe last month or maybe the month before, the government unveiled a scheme called green credits. Anyone, the farmer can say, sir, I am registering for green credits. Here is my farm. Here I am adopting carbon farming. Here I have accumulated so much of greenhouse gas savings and so on. I would like to get your attention on nano urea. We're going to keep this in our social media outlets, that is our Telegram, this and that. Nano urea, I have read that Pricewaterhouse or somebody, or Ernst & Young somebody, they have said if you are using it, one bottle is one bag. One bottle of 500 ml or something. So how much of chemical fertilizer or conventional is not being produced? PM Pranam, not being produced. How much of greenhouse gas emissions are being saved? Carbon credits, that's a part of your carbon farming. All the fertilizer reforms that you have done starting from neem, then your nano, then there are some other reforms that have come up. All of them are a part of your carbon farming, regenerative farming. Not organic, because they're chemicals after all. When you say carbon farming, you are calculating how much of carbon dioxide you are not emitting, which you would otherwise emit. Organic farming can credit the same. Take the credit. Organic farming. That's why I've said, they're all overlapped. But carbon farming, urea, all the fertilizer reforms, grazing control, agroforestry, and very, very importantly, two things. If you write all this, you're going to be, far, far rich in marks. Cover crops and rotation. Please write about rotation. Examiner desperately expects rotation from you. He is very eager to see this. Why? Since our childhood, we have seen that there is this cultivation of legumes, beans. What do? Biofertilizer. Fix the nitrogen in the atmosphere in the form of fertilizer and biofertilizer. So if your soil is losing the nutrients, then you rotate your crops, intercropping, whatever, with legumes. One example I can give. And they will bring fertility back to the soil. Rotation, do rotation and don't run for chemical fertilizers, drop of hat. Do rotation, number one, and some cover crops are there, it seems. You plant the trees and not agroforestry exactly, scatter them, I think, and they will do the trick of prevention of erosion. You could do all this. Regenerative carbon are, in my view, identical. Just that the emphasis here happens to be, sequestration number one, storage number two, and conversion, monetization of the carbon credits. There are verifiers, certifiers. Last time when we met, we talked about the carbon markets. In that, we talked about the Bureau of Energy Efficiency that regulates it. There are some people, they'll come to your farm, they'll come to your firm, and then they'll see how much the carbon credits you are claiming. Every metric ton of CO2 not emitted, that is credit. You convert that into money. So there is incentivization. And the green credit scheme I was talking about, there is mandatory, there is Green credit is largely voluntary. But there could be mandatory also. After all, green credit is green credit, but largely voluntary. You, even a household, your house, if you go for rooftop solar and so that you could save some GHGs and then you could convert them into a credit and sell verifiers and certifiers operating under the umbrella of the BW, that is Bureau of Energy Efficiency. These terrific schemes are unveiled by the government. So our government is set on popularizing natural farming. So where do you link natural farming? So natural farming essentially is organic. You must have be, of course, zero budget natural farms, ZBNF, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, it's proliferating there. Zero budget means what is there in your field, you use that as the fertilizer and then that will take care of the growth of the crop. Zero budget. Don't buy anything, neither the seed nor the fertilizer, and maybe you could save water also. Water harvesting, water, seed, and then you got the fertilizer, which is biofertilizer, and no tractor, zero tillage, maybe. So ZBNF is zero budget, zero. It costs you nothing and you get a lot of money. And you also give the example of Kusum. Examiner would love it if you give the example of Kusum. Kusum is that use of solar energy for drawing water. You are producing X amount of solar energy. You require only half X for it. The other half you could, feed into the grid and then get money. That is why this Ashok Gulati, who is a global expert on Indian agriculture, he keeps saying this solar energy is a third crop. Third crop. So these are all going on in India silently but solidly, they are going on in India. So that is another topic. Today is the 15th of August, when the summit of G20 is going to take place next month. It's not far away, next month, a little more than 1 month. By then your exam is over, of course. Some of your exams are over, around the 19th and all that. Then India, true to its chairmanship, is going to unveil a global deal, which is Global Biofuels Alliance. Without biofuels, you cannot carry on, but then you have to tread very cautiously. I'll come to that. So, we are spending about $100 billion for importing of petroleum, crude. But then, of course, we are processing it and exporting back and all that. That's okay. How much of forex it takes? How do you get this forex? Are you not borrowing money for it? Somebody is borrowing, if not you and I, if not the government. So, and then, think of the prices shooting up. We were all watching in the month of April last year because of the Ukraine crisis. I was watching live the movement of the crude prices, Brent and all the America. It touched $149 per barrel. 149. You can't afford it. If you can't afford it, you can't cook, you can't move. What will be the secondary, tertiary impact of the crude prices shooting up. It's highly, highly avoidable. So you do something, you got the bio waste, and you got, of course, maize, rice and all that. That's the question mark there. And of course, you got the sugar, a lot of sugar. We are the largest producer and consumer. Use that to be mixed with all your petrol, diesel, etc. Today we are achieving less than 20, but 25 we want to have E20 ethanol with 20% of this petrol with 20% of ethyl alcohol, that is ethanol. You could take it from rice or bio waste or maize or sugar, molasses and all. How will that help? I've told you some benefits. Greenhouse gas, of course. Dollars and current account deficit and the commodity prices going out of hand, all that is okay. And so, all that is okay means there are some points. So, this global biofuels alliance, Brazil is the boss, America is not far behind, and we are getting into the picture big scale. So we and other countries can also join. We'll all be together. We will develop markets. We'll share the technology. We'll learn from the best practices and we will do research. We will develop new products. This is generation one. First generation. Second generation, you may have naturally some crops like Jatropha, etc. Third generation, biotechnology, algae, some algae is there. From there, you could take the ethyl alcohol part. Why not? So it will help you in the transport sector in multiple ways. Greenhouse gas emissions, sustainability, and the pollution part, everything it will take care of, and the initial points also I made. So we are all interested. The deal is not there yet, but it will come about maybe on the 17th or 18th or 19th of next month. Before that, the experts will talk about it. Because India stands out as, please understand, India has been eminently popular as a leader. Who floated the International Solar Alliance? We floated. Who floated the disaster resilient infrastructure, the framework? We floated. Who is going to float the Global Biofuel Alliance? We're going to float it. So, we are getting bigger and bigger globally, and the name we are getting is soft power. That centers around the environment, disaster resilience, all that. But the problem is recently an order came saying that FCI should not sell rice to the refineries for, conversion of rice into ethyl alcohol. Because see, climate change, rains, this year those splendid rains, but otherwise rains are getting a little scarce till last year for a long, long while. Over raining, under raining. Geographical dispersal, not exactly the right dispersal. Too many problems are there. Climate change and other problems are also there with rice, wheat, of course. The production of rice is not enough. We are the most populous country in the world. 1.4 billion, overtook China. So many more mouths to feed. And so, you need rice for that. Surely, the day we import rice, you write off India. We will never do that. We are an exporter. Rice is a problem. You can't divert rice to production of ethyl alcohol. Maize is a problem. Maize is a problem. Of course, you could always say we'll divert from rice to millets and all that. Do it and then we'll talk about it. As of now, fuel versus food is a raging controversy. It can get even bigger as a controversy, and food security should not be hampered at the expense of fuel security, energy security. So energy versus food is a very, very delicate balance. We should try some other crops which are of non-food value for it. I'm sure Government of India will announce some great initiatives in course of time, because this controversy is, in the crosshairs of the policymakers. That's about biofuels. I've got the, graphics means the content for all this. I'm going to show you. You read that, you will love it. And it comes with lots and lots of balance. Balance. And so you will like it. We'll come to that after I finish my discussion of these listed topics. Rajya Sabha. See, just the last month, we had problem. Actually, a few days back, maybe 2 weeks back, we had a problem. It's been raging for a while, a month or so. Rajya Sabha is the Council of States. It guards the interests of the states. Lok Sabha guards the interests of the people. So Lok Sabha has lots of controlling mechanisms because of Article 75, which says that, council is responsible to the Lok Sabha. So Lok Sabha, no confidence, this and that, that's okay. But Lok Sabha holds the government accountable. Rajya Sabha can be critical, but accountability, Rajya Sabha is very muted. So Lok Sabha has no confidence motion. It also has, Lok Sabha has adjournment motion. So adjournment motion, you ask the Honorable Speaker, sir, I want to move an adjournment motion, which means I will stop everything else in the House and then we'll take up adjournment motion, adjourn everything else, and this motion will highlight a certain issue of urgent national importance and we'll take that up if you think so. So if the Honorable Speaker says, okay, I have no problem, I'm approving it, then you go to the House and 50 members say okay to it, then you can. The Speaker's no is no. Speaker's yes is not yes. That yes has to be yesed by the House as well. That is adjournment motion, holding the government accountable. In Rajya Sabha, as I told you, it guards the interests of the states and there is no room for such adjournment motion. That is, here you are, discussing Rule 267, Rule 176. Result. So what are these rules? They are made by the respective houses. Who gives them power? Article 118 says respective houses make their own rules. The Rules Committee headed by the chairman, Rules Committee headed by the speaker. They make respective rules for respective houses. So Rajya Sabha made a rule. In that rule book, there are two rules here which are relevant for our discussion. 267, 176. So, Manipur was there. Whatever it is, we are not into that. So some members of parliament wanted Manipur discussion. It was a nationally important in a very urgent manner. Let's take it up under 267. It's comparable to an extent to the adjournment motion. I'll differentiate between the two. So 267 is what? When member of Rajya Sabha asks the chairman of Rajya Sabha, sir, there is a topic like XYZ. I would like that taken up under Rule 267 and ensure that every other business laid down for today is suspended and this discussion will take up. You go to the chairman, that's the vice president, you go there. He says no. That's it, there is this no. Just like adjournment motion, when the Honorable Speaker said no, it was no. Here also, when the Honorable Chairman says it's no is no. Just in case he agrees to it, that agreement, that approval is not approval. Again, there is a, two-layered process here. The chairperson says, go ahead, then what do? You introduce a motion in Rajya Sabha, and if the Rajya Sabha wants that taken up, then, you go ahead with it. So there is a chairman saying no, everything is flat. Chairman saying yes, after that the motion is introduced and the House says, let's go ahead. House can veto it. Chairman can veto it. So there are two hurdles here potentially. Chairman says okay, House can say no. Chairman says no, don't even go to the House. So, there is this two-layered process of approval, point number one. Everything else is put off, number two. And there is some sub-clause saying that if there is a, business in the House which is connected to a rule and the rule itself lays down the procedure, how to, suspension, how to conduct the suspension, then you conduct the suspension as mentioned in that rule. We don't need all that. So basically, you have to say in your own inimitable style that here is a rule that allows suspension of all the business of the House because an urgent matter of national importance has to be taken up, and that's subject to chairman and the house. So 267 is big. Then you will be wondering, why can't he raise his hand? I mean, ask a question is 0 hour. That's just a question. Why can't you have a start? Start question is, it will take a millennium, 30 days and all that. So questions are out. Special mention, okay, you make a special mention, what's the deal? Here, you are having the chairman approve of the discussion. You having a house say, go ahead. There's no voting after that, after you have talked. For as long as the chairman allows you, a few hours maybe, end of the day maybe. After you've done that, then there is no voting, no resolution, nothing. You go home. But the fact is, you stalled everything else, number one, took a matter of burning importance, number two, and then you sailed through layers, chairman and the house, number three. This is sensational headline. Effectively, sound and fury. But then not just sound and fury, it's more than that. So that is why, after demonetization, there has not been permission granted for this 267. There's a softer option, 176. There is no motion, nothing. And you ask for 176. Go to your house, that is Rajya Sabha, before 10. Tell the Secretary General, that Secretariat, you tell them, I want to. And fine, I mean, they'll allow you to take this up. There's no permission required. There's no motion. And there's no permission required. Then you talk whatever you want to talk. So 176 closes in 2.5 hours. Short duration discussion it is called. And then you talk, that's all. It has nothing sensational. You haven't blocked anything to take up something sensationally important. Even here, a matter of public importance. I'm going to show you a graphic of a table which shows you the difference between the two. So that is why this 176 was allowed. Allowed means, how can you disallow it? Short duration discussion. So that's how it went on. Article 142 is, it says the Supreme Court can give any order to render complete justice in a case pending before it. Any order. Complete justice. These are big words. And what is the basic intent behind it? After all, Supreme Court should have, I don't want to use big words, it should have special power to ensure justice, number one. Or I'll take you down to the other level, at the, the bottom line. Why do you give the Supreme Court the power? Imagine the Supreme Court gave an order, gave a ruling. The ruling is not being implemented. Will you wait for a lifetime before you strike the delinquent person under the contempt of court? Surely not. You have to get into action mode instantly. So give a ruling, it's not being implemented, come down under 142. That might have been the original intention. Also, you could interpret it as extraordinary justice outside the scope of the ordinary law. It's transcendental power. I don't want to use that word. Extraordinary discretion. You could use any word actually. So that power the Supreme Court has. And under that, what has it not done? What has it not done? Taj Mahal, the marble was getting yellow because of the fumes of sulfur, and Supreme Court under 142 directed that, there should be remedial action. Vishaka rules so that, women are fine inside the office while at work, and work is defined expansively. So Vishaka rules, they have, see, it's not like they're asking somebody make these rules. No, they made the rules, still they're enacted formally. Vishaka rules. And then Bhopal gas tragedy, the victims, Supreme Court said, give them relief like this, like this, like this. And That becomes a charged expenditure for the government. Charged. Supreme Court order entailing expenditure on the part of the government becomes charged, like your interest payments, like your loan repayments, like salaries, this, that. Charged expenditure. They have done that. What else have they done? They have done, I'll count it from most recent, that is, a man and a woman, they were not relating well, they were married. And if they had to go by the law, irretrievable breakdown and all that, it'll take a millennium for them to separate and their lives are gone in the meanwhile. So Supreme Court said, separate out. You don't have to go through all the nonsense. You're not able to relate. You tried every trick in the book to come together nicely, relate. No, you could not. Then make a new life for yourselves. So they have given an order to sort of let them go their own way, separate ways. They gave an order. They didn't tell the government to give an order. They gave an order. And then Pararivalan, he was there in the jail for donkey's years. The governor was sitting on the file because the law wasn't clear. And the Supreme Court said in the Pararivalan, release. They have released him. That's 142. They have released him. They didn't tell the governor it's your duty to show mercy. Facts are on the side of Pararivalan. So let him go. No, they have let him go. And then these, sex workers, some sex workers are there, like I teach, like somebody is an accountant. They are sex workers. Give them equal respect because they carry equal dignity. But they are being harassed and power is being misused and all that. So under 142, they have said rehabilitate the sex workers, number one, and don't ever, use your power, misuse your power against them, number two. They have the right to dignity. They have a life of their own, and then privacy, dignity, all that. I would even say work security. They're all there. So they have given this order for sex workers. So these are, and of course, Ayodhya, all that land they gave. All these are the examples where we have seen extraordinary recourse to, 142 allows you that for life with dignity, office security, the workplace security, all this. So this is extraordinary part, but some people are uncomfortable with it because they are overreaching. But then in the examples I have given, after all, women have to be secure in the office, keep them secure. If you haven't made the law, we'll make the law. And our law will be there till your law comes. And this, the parliamentary law. Basically, there is a vacuum in the constitution, we are filling it. And the stuff with which we fill is there till you, by the constitutional process of making the law, replace it. You have seen it, Anup Baranwal, Supreme Court, a collegium to appoint, to recommend the appointment of election commissioners. They have laid down a certain procedure, CJI, PM, and the leader of opposition Lok Sabha, and then the bill that got into the parliament 2-3 weeks back in the monsoon session, replaced CJI with a cabinet. But then in that verdict, if you read, Supreme Court says there is a vacuum. Our core competence, our core work is not legislation. Legislation is your work, your constitutional responsibility and duty. Since you haven't done anything, since we believe fair and free elections can be conducted by the Election Commission, only when the Election Commission is, the commissioners are appointed by a body like a collegium with eminence and all that. So here is a collegium we are constructing. Follow this till you make your own law. They didn't say the composition must be the same. They didn't say. You make your law. We would like to see a collegium recommending eminent people for this post. That's all they said. So, if you don't like the law, you don't like the bill or law, whatever, because of your value system, that's another thing. But if you say it contradicted Supreme Court, it did not. There is no tension in this matter between the two. There is. Oh, you may love to see the CJI as one of the members. That's okay. That's your preference. But how is the CBSE? They are appointed? CBSE is appointed by PM and cabinet minister and of course the LOP. Some people say, cabinet minister nominated by the PM and the PM. Together they have two votes, but they have one voice. What's the difference between the two? They go together, but they look like two. Means they have, you gave them two votes to one person. So you are tilting the balance. But that's okay. It's not an invention. It is a carrying forward of a precedent. You know, why begin with a doubt? All is well. Collegium is there. So 142 is tremendous. Just that overreach accusation is there, but that's okay. Is there a place, a topic which is free of tension? So now, Black Sea grain deal. Black Sea grain deal. Last year at this time, we were all worried. Now we have got used to worry. That's the difference. So last year, Feb, Ukraine war, Ukraine is a bread basket. Wheat, soybean, sunflower, they're all grown there. So is Russia. And the grain has to go through the Black Sea, Europe and Africa and all that. So the war cannot be allowed to stop the trade in this food security. So United Nations, Turkey, Ukraine and Russia together, they made a team. Ukraine, Black Sea, Grain Initiative. That's the deal. Under which what? Some ports of Ukraine in the Black Sea was selected to be eligible, from where ships carrying grain and fertilizer could go, for global trade. Because the Black Sea is heavily mined. You have to find a safe passage. So some ports, some routes, well guarded, and they will carry the grain and stuff. But then its shelf life was 1 year. That's how it set out. And Russia called it off last month. Russia had two motives. One, why help Ukraine sell its grain and fertilizer? I produce the same, so why not I sell mine? I have ready market. China is ready, and we would also, our national interest demands that we source it from anywhere. After all, Russia has been our traditional customary friend. Multifaceted relation we have. We would love to buy from Russia grain and fertilizer. So why Russia thought, why help Ukraine do it? I will do it myself. I'll earn the money. I've got the same goods. And Russia gave the pretext that unless you're softening the sanctions on me, don't expect me to extend the life of the deal beyond 1 year. And what happens if the deal is not on now? Fertilizer prices spiking. Wheat. Critical minerals are also there in Ukraine. Sunflower and your soybean prices are going up. I've read an article, global food insecure. You see, whatever grain is there, America, Europe, Japan, they lap it up. What about the global south? The food insecurity. What about Africa? Social stability, political stability. Everything is connected here. So it's a very, very worrying situation. Maybe India can do something about it, help the deal to come back, but no one is in a, forgiving mood in the West. They would like the Russian economy to crumble, Putin humiliated, weakened, and all that. So we don't know what magic will play out for the Black Sea Green Deal to come back. We don't know. As of now, we have no idea. Chances are pretty bleak. This is also, we all should know, government wants to get rid of all this junk laws. Ease of doing business should be important. No decriminalization and citizen centered and all that. So 42 central laws were muted in the Jan Vishwas. That is what Jan Vishwas law is about. Health, that is pharma, and other industrial sectors. There is this decriminalization and ease of doing business and so on. So what did they do? Drugs and Cosmetics Act. There is a section. In that section, it deals with punishment for drugs which are not of standard quality. Not of standard quality. NSQ. Not of standard quality. So, generally you get, you buy some calcium tablets, you buy. You get them, occasionally you get them in a broken form. That is also not of standard quality. Put him in jail. So there can be spurious drugs, adulterated drugs. They can be, there can also be not of standard quality, broken tablets. Some labeling might have gone wrong. You can't treat both these departures from law identically. Serious ones, imprisonment. And, non-serious ones, compoundable. That is, you pay some fine and get away. This is what the government has done in the process of Jan Vishwas law. That is decriminalization, ease of doing business and, compoundability, etc. But then surely there'll be criticism, because criticism, the dialectics of point, counterpoint, going forward, that is bound to be there. That's how we have come this far. So criticism was that, you are taking criminals in the field of pharmacy lightly. If you give civil punishment, that is compoundable if you make it, then you are incentivizing delinquency and crime. After all, you are talking of pharma, medicine. People blindly trust medicine. Yeah, this is Cipla. Okay, go ahead. Glenmark, go ahead. Sun, you go ahead. But the same, wrapper, foil can be made by anyone. So, of course, the government says we are very, very vigilant, but then we need to differentiate among the offences. Some are light, compoundable, fine, you let them go. The officer will decide. Some are non-compoundable, serious. You, treat them with a stick, means give them big punishment, etc., etc. So I don't see a problem there at all. Please go through all this. You will love it. They're all being put up in our channels. Whenever you are bored, you go there, you read that, you benefit, you feel good and stuff. All these details, I'm sure they are overlookable. Here, what's important is the MOU you sign, the local currency, the benefits. That's all. Since we discussed that already, I thought I will bring the topic back in a different form by highlighting this latest crude and gold deals in local currency. Significance, he expects you to say this of course, and what else does he? India, the international currency, all that. oil and gas sector. You know, a first transaction, all that is a bit sort of journalistic. You need to say this much. The crude trade, LNG also, this can be a good preliminary question. Fourth largest source of crude oil, second largest in LNG and LPG, second largest. He'll say this, that, we'll wait for stats to emerge by December, Jan. This, 85 billion in 22. Total trade is 85 billion. At one time, UAE used to be the largest trading partner of India. Then it was China. Now it is America. We and America, we are going very strong. Global Biofuels Alliance. As you are writing the exam, this deal will be struck and please read this. Without mentioning the country's name, Brazil, you have not written anything at all. Then food security, energy security thing, one line at least you have to write. And of course, all this you could avoid. Let the deal come into place, then we will know all the details. Till then, we will only know the significance and importance, the urgency of the deal. But then this is a curtain raiser. G20 presidency, we're going to push this. So that's big. The regular words like sustainability, transport sector, all that you have to. I don't see too much of hard facts here, but let the deal come out. Rajya Sabha 67-76. You have to say comparable to Lok Sabha Rajya. Mildly comparable. But there it's Speaker allows the 50 members and there's no time limit. Here also there is no time limit as such. There it's Lok Sabha. Remember Rajya Sabha, okay, something happens, nothing happens. Lok Sabha, you take up an adjournment motion and pass it, the government may survive it, but may not survive it also. The government doesn't have to resign, of course, but may not survive. So comparable, if you say, that will be wonderful. And these are the points, enables urgent discussions, we talked about it. Go there and apply, tell them, suspension. A formal motion, after the chairman says go ahead, then you have to go to the House to seek its permission. To that extent, it is votable. To that extent. So friends, I want to have this. If majority wants you to go ahead, that is where voting takes place. But after discussion, after guys have spoken, MPs have spoken, there is no vote. Adjournment motion, there is voting there. Here there is no voting, no resolution passed, etc., etc. Now that the rule has become sensational, you better remember this. You moved the motion based on the rule. That very rule says how to suspend this motion. Then, of course, your 267 doesn't work. Specific provision rule suspension exists. 267 doesn't work. This is 176, 2.5. Here the must. The right expression is short duration discussion. And then there is no need for motion, etc. No. The chairman can't stop it. If it's in order, you can go ahead. After all, what are you doing? 2.5 hours people will speak. And if that is also denied, then This is the comparison. Now you see the table. Urgent, urgent, here also urgent. Formal motion, voting to allow the motion, not voting after the discussion. No formal motion. Specific time limit not there, 2.5 hours. Approval required sets the time limits. Notice, same thing before 10 o'clock. Specific rules, no such rule. Urgent issues, historical and various issues, utilize many a time. That's not a problem. So this is a table that separates the two rules. And will you remember this? It will be wonderful if you can remember. Now it is a burning issue, therefore in the upcoming main examination it can be asked. Why not? After all, it's an issue that dominated the headlines. 267 will certainly be important for your prelim also. Oh, who is going to ask you for a comparison? In this main, it can be asked. Organic, regenerative, and carbon. Organic agriculture, you know organic. No chemicals, that's all. Lots of rules or regulations. That is why if you ask someone, is it organic food? I can't say that. I can say it does not have fertilizers, which are chemical, synthetic fertilizers we have not used. They won't say it's organic because so many regulations and standards and certification. If you haven't obtained all that, you can't sell it for organic. These days you are doing it so loosely. You can say it's free of chemical fertilizers. We haven't used chemical. Organic can be defined, shouldn't have. Synthetic inputs it should not have. Synthetic chemical fertilizers. Labeled as that. Regenerative, crop rotation, cover crops, zero tillage, limited little bit of synthetic, little bit maybe even that. No actually. Organic inputs, livestock, agro, indigenous knowledge. These are the characteristics. You're regenerating. You're not just generating food. You're regenerating the entire ecosystem with, all the carbon, soil carbon, etc. What do you get? Soil health, soil carbon, same thing actually. GHG is down, enhance biodiversity because once you have organic practices and this, crops and other, the biodiversity, variety of crops there, it doesn't go extinct. Productivity, of course, when this happens, this is bound to happen. Farm resilience, after all, when you have natural processes, you are regenerating, then you are, very strong resilience. Because say you go for a GMO, there is only one variety. If something goes wrong there, all others you have not been using, they're already extinct. This goes wrong, we'll all starve. But if you have regenerative, then all crops are, in solid health. So you are not so vulnerable to this prospect of crops going extinct. Reduce farm waste because you're using it back. All this carbon, there's not some overlap among the three. Carbon is, but then you regenerative. But then you must first line carbon sequestration. You have to use it. Rest all is same thing. Agroforestry, just like primary goal, sequester, and common methods, forest management, everything is credits. Where is that? Credits. Kusum you have to use both in carbon and regenerative because both are same. fertilizer reforms, biochar, you burn it and it becomes pretty good nutrient. Biochar can come as a separate question also. Carbon farming. Carbon farming, unlike the regenerative farming, if I can take the liberty, you could think of the fertilizer reforms and renewable. Kusum you could. And urea gold and nano and neem, all that. Now Jan Vishwas, decriminalize. Pharma, media, agriculture, all lots of laws are junked and simplified and decriminalized. A lot of things These 4 lines, if you cease, you've already won the game. I think good manufacturing practices, this you have to. If you can mention this, you are the winner. This, of course, you will mention. And my point is, NSQ, you will love this. After all, you want to be there. You will love it. I thought I'll deliberately simplify it to a point where you lap it up. I've done that. Jan Vishwas. Balances leniency and accountability. Be lenient. Hold them accountable proportionate to their offense. Black Sea, Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, Black Sea, you have to go through this. Odisha is one and the other two from there. These are all mined. This is not mined. Ships will be escorted. Once you reach Turkey, you're fine. Then you are outside danger zone. Go to Africa, go anywhere and sell them. To Europe, of course, you can take your grain here also like that. Yeah, but how will that grain go here? The ships and this is more direct, cheaper. There the prices will shoot through. Ports on the Black Sea, global markets. All this is fine. Something in the preliminary like this can come. Which one of the ports given below is not a Black Sea port? Because see, Black Sea is not the, minor one anymore. After this, it's got global ramifications. So, Black Sea, he asked you about the bordering states of Ukraine in the prelim. This can come. Why? Step up a little bit more. Be relevant still. And there's a deal about it, number 3. Too much of the global economy, particularly global south, hinges on that, number 4. So it's askable. Why did Russia terminate? I'll do my own, I've got my own stuff. But the pretext is soften the sanctions on me. This is a non-option because, logistics and they may not like it. Russia won't like it and so they won't like it. Food meant for Europe will go to Europe. Food meant for Africa and other global south, why will it go through Europe? This is big. I've told you all the reasons. I'm not rushing you. Please read this. PDF is available. If it's not available, one comment in our Telegram channel, it'll be available. We would love you to read this. 1, because written well. 2, because from the exam point of view, they are pretty good. I don't want to talk of exam, but that's the elephant in the room. Yeah, elephant in a good sense, good elephant. So you see, one line from you, tell us this topic, where is the PDF? Please tell. It's there. Team is there to respond to you and you will love it. Specific legitimate uses. You're balancing what? Scrutiny potentially undermining individuals and all that. You are striking a balance between protecting individual privacy rights and allowing necessary data Government has to process the data. You can't stick to your privacy rights so hard that the government can't do its job. So strike a balance. These are pretty decent, performance of a contract. I gave you the NPA example. Legal obligations and other purposes explicitly sovereignty, integrity, unity, and all. Bolster individuals' trust in data. I know my data processing won't intrude into my privacy unless it is called for in public interest. I have that confidence because of the law. And that's a wonderful belief. Here it is. This we can skip actually, though it's nicely done. You can read it. 142. Taj Mahal, Union Carbide. Under trials, okay. Vishakha, Ayodhya, divorce, sex workers, Perarivalam. Superb, superb. And they struck at the right time for the right issue. And if you read the Anu Baranwal verdict, they have clearly stated, I think, in so many places, it's not our job to make law. We are filling a vacuum. Elections are too important. We are a democracy. And we think that a collegium recommending will do good to Indian democracy with the eminence required and all that. So this is our proposal. It will be followed till you replace it with your own law. Very, very tentative and highly, highly impressive. 142. Extraordinary. That's it. So I wish you all the best. I've done my part and I'll be back with you in a few days with another set of superb questions and hopefully good answers. Good night. Superb questions and hopefully good answers. Good night. Superb questions and hopefully good answers. Good night.